how have we made it this far? This episode's going to be a bit more gooder.
Nice one. Great word.
A bit better than last episode.
This is why people only watch the first 2 minutes of each episode.
Exactly. Well, today we're going to be talking about the ethics of magic and whether magic goes too far on TV and in real life. This is a topic that is dear to my heart, as I am a wizard.
Wizard.
Okay, that's it. So yeah, I read this on a forum that said, I was told today that the ethics of a magician are based around lying, stealing and cheating. That those of you that make a career of magic simply take advantage of the gullible and susceptible.
It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
What do you think?
That's what I do when I'm friends with Connor.
Think about that quote. Do you think magicians are liars, cheats and scoundrels?
I don't think they're like liars or cheats. I think nowadays most magicians are pretty open with the fact that everyone knows that they're not actually magic, but like it's still pretty cool they do.
But they're using like criminal-esque type things in order to do magic. You know, they're like stealing.
That doesn't mean they're definitively criminal.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying they are
What
criminal.
would you describe as criminal-esque?
Like using
Manslaughter. That's just criminal.
Murder.
Someone down in the car. That's just criminal.
It's like, yes, I'm now going to escape from this tank of water, and then they just die, and they're like, well,
None of that's criminal.
No, you just throw a woman in the water.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I
we're
mean,
not
like
the 1930s.
teaching someone
No, I'm
and
pretty
then
sure it
just
actually
telling
is.
them wrong.
Well, what's this penalty for killing yourself?
Death.
But they use like cheating and there are magicians on the streets of LA who basically do this thing called 3-card Monty, where you have two like black queens, for example, and then one red ace, and you have to follow the ace, and they like muddle them around and stuff, and then you just choose where you think it is. But there is a way of forcing where, like, changing the outcome that basically they get it wrong every time. Or they lull them into a false sense of security by making them get it right, and then they make it wrong, so they lose all their money.
Well, the only crime really for magic under is fraud, isn't it? It's the only magic doesn't exist, James.
It doesn't
so sorry.
exist.
But well, fraud.
How do you explain Satan?
How do I explain what?
Nothing.
What?
Satan.
Satan.
No.
I can't explain Satan. Do you want me to?
No.
Okay, good.
Just
Have you
trying to tell
give
a
your
wizard
point.
magic isn't real?
But I'm saying, but yeah, it's the only thing that comes under fraud. If you're using, like you say, misdirection, etc., to gain monetarily off someone, then yes, that's criminal. But if you're doing it with their consent,
But what about a show? Like, if you go to see a magician, and then they're still watching magic, and one
yeah, but you're consenting.
Cain, the
If you
gift that
cons-
keeps on giving.
If you consent to let someone go through your house and steal stuff, and you say, right, yeah, I allow this to happen, I don't even know if that's criminal.
yes, it is.
I don't even know
Yeah,
if
steal
it
my
is.
stuff. I don't care.
Because if you just open it, you just, as a thief though, you just go, yeah, sure, come in, take what you want. That's just like they're lending it to you, or giving
No,
it to
it's
you.
not.
That's like
So
if you
go
tell a
to-
thief
okay,
he
so
can rob you, then
So
yeah.
you walk through town, and your pockets are open, and you just shout, pickpockets, come and get it.
It's not really
Come and get some.
They still do it really. They still do it like really stealthily.
That's just giving them the stuff, isn't it? If you just open the door and
No,
say,
giving it to
thieves,
somebody is
come in.
So
illegal.
what if you have a magician on the street,
Magician.
and he performs magic to you without consent? Is he a criminal? Look in your pockets, all your money's gone, and then he runs off.
Is it given back to you, or is it just gone?
It's just gone.
Yeah, of course it's.
No, he takes £10 from you and then changes it into £20. He's taking your money, but he's
So he takes
replaced it with
£10,
something
changes
better.
to 20, then takes the 20. No,
That's like
that's
someone
still
robbing your
criminal.
house and just taking everything and replacing it with gold. Is that a crime?
No, because you.
Yes.
Wait, so
Like,
someone's,
come in, take
oh, he
your
said
RTC
someone's
TV
taking
and
the
replace
tenner.
it
So
with
someone
a
takes a
battery.
tenner off you. So someone takes a tenner off you
Yeah.
without the consent. So you just stole a tenner.
But then
Yeah, and then you show it, you're like, look in your pocket, your tenner's gone, and then they're like, oh, and then you go, what, and turn it into a £20.
And then you give it
Then
back.
don't give it back.
Or you just,
No, you turn it into £20. I don't know where I'm going with it.
what a pointless dream.
Okay, well that's today's episode. No, I do have some other points.
Hypnosis.
Yeah, first of all, though, we'll go on to David Blaine, Are we all aware of who David Blaine is?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's the guy that like went on breakfast TV and just sat there with his hand up with like an eye drawn on it for the whole
He's a bit of a
interview
weirdo, isn't he?
and did nothing. Yeah,
Stop.
he did a trick where he basically.
Bryn, you've become like the father figure.
I am.
You're getting so like
I am.
annoyed. Just calm yourself down.
I just don't know that it's like right by the mic, so it must just be.
But
That's
for
why I
those
tried
of,
to do it under the table. They're for everybody.
for those listening, there is a packet of Doritos right next to the mic, so we
Oh, yeah,
apologise
the-
for any
the-
rustling.
The mountains.
Big up, Kay.
Yeah,
Where?
for that one person viewing this
Those on the wireless.
thing at the end.
There is something.
But you got to wait.
Probably gotta
You
show
gotta watch the whole thing. There's little
Give
snippets
away.
of information throughout the whole thing. You gotta wait. Anyway, as I was saying, David Blaine, he does a trick, and he did it quite recently,
No.
where he tries to catch a bullet between his teeth.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
Did you
Penn,
just get shot?
Penn and Teller do like a trick where they do it,
Yeah.
and it is quite clearly a
Who
trick.
are
Penn and Teller.
How do you not know who Penn and Teller are? They're like the
Me.
most famous magicians in the world.
they? I don't follow
Do you know
magic.
Penn and Teller?
I'm not a wizard.
I reckon Gandalf was better.
I
You don't have to be a wizard.
Teller are.
I reckon Gandalf was better.
But yeah,
And Dumbledore.
but David Blaine did it for real, where he actually did catch a bullet by using like this weird cup thing that he put in his mouth, and then they shot him with a gun that he then caught in this little cup thing in his mouth, which then shattered and like cut his throat up. Yeah, he caught the gun, not the bullet. No, he caught the bullet.
No.
And he caught it like with the cup.
Yeah, but still in
So
his
it was
mouth.
just like a bulletproof cup.
Yeah, but do you think that is like?
Surely he just knew exactly where on him it would land because they pre-planned it or something.
Yeah, he aimed it himself using like mirrors and
And how is
stuff.
that?
Oh,
And
okay,
lasers.
It's not magic.
Because he didn't want anyone to
That's
shoot
what I
and then kill him by mistake.
It's not magic. It's just kind of showing off.
Yeah, I know.
And that's not
So
criminal.
Sort of
There's-
magic.
There's no criminal element.
Where
I'm
are
not
the
saying
ethics
it's criminal,
in
but
this?
is it ethical to do things like that and have people try and recreate?
Well,
It's
they're
yourself though.
They're
Just as long as you say
consenting.
don't try this
But
at
that was
home.
like there were those kids
WWE.
that like filmed a YouTube video of them like they held like a Bible up
A
or
baby
something,
in the
and they
water.
got, like,
Oh.
and they got like they were like, oh, do you think like this gun can like shoot through the Bible or
Shoot
whatever?
through the
So they
Bible
held it and the
challenge.
guy just got killed. So
With
like
Percent of our audience
with
is from
someone's
the
consent,
US.
Yeah.
and they actually ate another person. They started off
Fuck
with this, you know, thing.
We're a British channel and we're
and
proud.
they both ate his thing, and then they progressed from there. But the thing is that criminal?
Ate his thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
Hey,
what?
It's illegal
Are you
to-
talking about the cannibal in Germany
Yeah.
who like ate?
I watched a
someone?
documentary.
What's that to do with magic?
What did he eat?
He ate his dick.
thing.
No,
His penis?
no, they took the dick off, then they ate it in a
Penis.
pan, and then they both ate it. And then he bled out because they just didn't think to patch the wound up.
I've had a big dick to fill them both.
No, they're talking about how it shriveled up in the pan and everything.
Why? What does this have to do with anything?
I watched this geezer eat a lion's
They're
testicle.
wizards.
This isn't magic.
No, but the thing
Magic wand.
is, it's what we would perceive as a criminal act between consenting people. and not-
You know that's actually a sex toy.
I'm not saying that magic is criminal.
No, we're saying it's an immoral act, but it's done between two consenting people.
But it's still illegal because you can't eat people.
So then saying that but can you shoot someone?
No.
So then is that then a criminal act or an immoral act? Because
Well,
technically you
what-
are.
It's criminal.
So,
and immoral at the same time.
so
Like-
we're all of the agreement that magic act where the guy got shot and caught it with his teeth is immoral. And
No.
it's-
No,
There's a
he
difference
wants
to
between
shoot
catching a bullet and eating
Yeah,
someone's
but he wanted
dick.
it to be eaten. He wanted to be devoured.
Yeah, but
But-
there's still a difference. One results in like the
Death.
magic act, and one results in.
Yeah, but if the bullet misses, it results in death. If he eats
But
someone,
if-
it results in death.
That's his own fault.
If they said, okay, there's a 50-50 chance that whether or not will eat your penis, and then they don't eat his penis, it's not illegal.
In fairness, they did actually on the side. They actually said, "I may not if I don't."
But what if
kill
he
it."
swapped the
So,
what if he swapped the penis out for a fake one? Then it would be magic.
yeah. Wouldn't have the flavour though, would it? It'd just be kind of a bit of a dick move, really.
Why would you
Somebody
want to?
else's.
Why would you want to eat your own penis?
I don't.
We're not having this conversation now.
oh,
Another-
Gareth, why would you want to eat your own?
Another
Yeah,
potentially. Really, I just wanted to talk about magicians. To be
Right,
honest,
okay,
this isn't really
magicians.
anything
Magicians,
ethical.
not
We'll talk about Dynamo.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Do we know who Dynamo is?
I know,
Yes.
I know.
He's the only magician anyone knows these
Yeah.
days.
Apparently.
He did a trick where he basically flew near the statue of Christ in Rio de Janeiro. Is it Rio de Janeiro? I think that's right.
Yeah, the Christ Redeemer.
Yeah, that one.
Sounds like that.
Cristo de Redentor.
Is that moral to pose as a religious figure? And
Yeah.
trick people into thinking he is the second coming. People believed it.
So yeah, what's the immoral act of that?
The fact that he
Posing as
thought that
Christ.
he was actually Jesus.
No, Gav, shut up.
What's wrong with posing as Christ? People are gonna be idiots and fine.
It's not that they're being idiots though, it's that it's like deep rooted in their beliefs and they worship Christ and they see this man floating by a statue of Christ.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Wait, was he
right.
actually floating?
Yeah.
Have you not seen it?
I haven't seen it.
It's mad.
I thought it was in a fucking plane.
No.
I reckon if
He wasn't
Dynamo...
in a plane.
He's a small aircraft. He is Jesus.
I thought you just came down in a plane. Just a Boeing 777.
Let's quickly get it.
I think Jesus sacrificed
Doesn't
enough
mean
already.
they look like
Yeah, but you need
Jesus.
to look like Jesus. You need to be convincing, don't you?
What does Jesus look like?
Well, an Arab who's got long hair. And
They were doing a midget as well. They were little back then.
they were actually were.
What is your obsession with Jesus?
Look, this is
In
this
Brew.
is what he does.
Watch you fucking
I'm watching. Can you help me run to work? Does someone shout? It's Jesus.
Do we need to describe?
No, someone shouts out Akbar.
Okay. Dynamo is posing for a camera, and then he slowly begins to float up like a majestic rocket.
He's ascending.
It's Dynamo's.
Like 20 seagulls.
Those who's actually anorexic. Christ.
It's Dynamo's.
Yeah, I told you. You see it now, don't you?
See, look, he's flying in a plane. I think he just has rocket boots on.
I'm sorry, but if you just pull up.
He's just standing there
Second coming.
How does he do it?
with his elbows.
What? That was bad.
Wizardry.
Well, that's interesting.
Does someone shout the Messiah?
On real though, how does he
But
do
people
that?
do
That's my
believe
favourite.
that he is.
James, can you do that?
He
Yeah.
is the Messiah.
Do you know how he does it, James?
No,
Don't tell us.
no, I don't.
You're part of the
actually.
magic circle.
I
He does it
honestly
with
don't.
rocket boots.
He
Is there
does
such
it.
thing as rocket
There
boots?
is.
What?
No, there's not.
There
When's
is.
Area
There's
51?
not.
In
There is
terms of
something
like a
rocket
water jetpack, but
But that's not.
you
that's
need
not
to be
rocket
over
boots.
water.
That would be like a scientific breakthrough.
Wouldn't it just break your legs? It just breaks your legs. Your kneecaps would just shatter.
It's
Yeah.
magic.
So it's just a pointless thing.
What's a
You've got
jetpack?
rocket boots just breaks your legs.
What's a jetpack?
Like they have.
Like a Mario Sunshine.
Yeah, yeah. That is, yeah. It's exactly like that actually. Oh, yeah.
I never
Right.
liked
I just want to
Mario.
know how he does it now.
Strings, I think.
No.
Yeah, I
Boring.
reckon.
Like Prince of
There's
Persia.
a statue.
There's just a giant helicopter in the sky that's just
It's
holding him up.
just really long string.
Yeah, the film was crap.
So,
Some shit about a tiger eating his mum and his
I
dad.
don't know. Probably mirrors. It probably is mirrors.
mirrors. He was in a group of people.
Doesn't matter.
Clearly mirrors.
Just put mirrors.
Mirrors. Yeah.
Okay,
When you
James.
see,
Well, how does he do it then?
he's made of bees, and it's just they recreate him using bees, and he just rises into the sky.
I can't laugh too much.
It just it's
There's no
nice bees.
Not the
Don't you
face.
see it?
Not the face.
This has
been a travesty.
Who is? Nah, Nicolas Cage.
Darren Brown.
Oh, you're talking about not the bees.
The Wicker Man.
Yeah, that's it. What?
Should we move on?
Yeah. We now move on to real magic.
Clearly.
Darren Brown.
Darren Brown.
His stuff is actually genuinely real.
Is he the one who got the guy to like try and assassinate someone?
Yeah.
We'll get on to
That was a good show. That.
That was brilliant.
He does a trick,
Just for the band.
and I'll read the extract that I found on this article. The art of extracting criminal confessions from detained suspects is a controversial area of legal and psychological discussion, and proved a fascinating subject for the guilt trip. Part of 2011's notably darker The Experiments. The premise of this episode rests on whether Derren can make an innocent participant confess to a faked murder using a variety of mental techniques. So basically, he just made an innocent person confess using techniques that actually some policemen use, corrupt policemen use, in order to get a confession out of someone who didn't do the crime. And people confess to anything from petty crimes to like murder, and they'll do it in minutes or some take longer.
Just shows how there must be so many
That's
people in
like
prison
in,
who didn't do it.
Or
Make
show
the murderer.
would they
Yeah.
take the
Where, like,
confession
his-
seriously?
They get like his
Because they have to just
nephew
Garrett,
have
to like
sure.
give like a detailed account about how he killed this person that he actually didn't. But because he was like quite a young kid, he was like a
That
teenager.
impression of him.
He was like they just for like hours sat there and were like basically telling him that he did it so much that he started to convince himself that he did.
Yeah, they did that on Minefield. Vsauce did an episode. I haven't seen it. I don't know if he released it, but he recorded it, where basically he got someone to confess to murder in 6 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So is that
You can do some mad
ethically
stuff.
right
to
to do as a
I
trick?
think it
Not
is
not in the
because-
legal
okay.
jurisdiction system. Obviously, it's wrong.
I think it's fine to do it to like prove a point, to prove the fact that there must be people in prison who, because you found before there have been people who they found out like years later they didn't do it even though they confessed to it.
Yeah.
So think about how many people there could be out there.
Mm.
So it's okay from like a psychological point of view, but then when you start doing it as like a trick for like a Vsauce program, it's like, oh, is this okay? Is this worth it? Like the psychological damage that you're causing.
It'd be funny to make a bloke think he was a woman.
Right.
Or no. Sorry. Continuing.
Okay. That would be hilarious, Connor. He also did a trick where he basically he handcuffs secured. Wait, hold on. Let me read this. Handcuffs secured in a sack and submerged underwater. Angela must use her newly acquired skills to escape before she drowns. And after what feels like an eternity, the woman eventually breaks the surface of water free from her shackles. So basically, Derren Brown basically used techniques of mind manipulation to convince this woman that she knew how to escape, like escapologist stuff. And she actually did, and she did it. So he can basically teach skills in a matter of hours, or I don't even know how long it took to teach her. I haven't actually seen this episode. But is that... He also taught a woman how to play the piano in a few hours for a recital. So how...
Is it all real or are some of them
It's real.
actors?
I'm pretty sure it's real.
They're not actors.
Is it verifiable real? As in, it's beyond doubt that it is real.
Yeah, he does.
Well,
Well,
he's
maybe
done it. He
there-
actually has done it live,
He
hasn't
does
he?
stuff
He does a
for
lot of live
audiences
stuff.
and
So yeah.
stuff.
There's always a
Stuff like
possibility
that
that he
is
could
incredible.
be faking it, but if you look at what he uses, then it's been used before in the past in scientific trials and stuff. And he really does study psychology in a lot of detail and knows a lot of loopholes in the human mind in order to do things. So do you think it's ethical to be able to pretty much teach people whatever they want, such as like Matrix, when you could just download like knowledge of karate?
Yes. Well, why would it
If
not
someone
be if they want
consents
to?
to it,
Mm.
They can do it. They can do what they want. They can have who wants to teach them.
That
It's
could
their
actually be
choice.
really helpful.
But
Quite
can
a
you
lot
just
of
teach
people.
you like
Kinda
how to
inevitable
just...
not teach everyone how to do it themselves.
You could just-
Yeah, exactly.
And it could be
You have to put your
used-
trust in him to teach you the right thing. Because
Yeah,
what
but
if
that's
he
your
just
responsibility.
manipulated you?
Say for example, you've got I don't know a stammer or you public speaking. If you have difficulty with, if you be hypnotised or taught that in a way, consenting, you can actually avoid some really quite damaging afflictions. Really. So.
It does seem weird that like you think if it was something that you could actually learn to do to teach someone a skill, it seems weird that
Like she never-
it's not a big thing.
She never played the piano.
That's
and
why I struggle to think it's verifiable.
Yeah.
when he was teaching, he didn't use the piano to teach her, he just told her. And then she could just do it.
It's
So,
very weird.
I mean, this is like slightly off topic. There's been like those times when people have like out-of-body experiences, or like they die and come back, and like they've never been able to play the piano before, and then they can like play.
Oh,
it,
that's
like
like,
super skillfully and stuff
a
like that.
guy got hit by a car, and he was British, and when he got hit by a car, he suddenly spoke, I think Russian or something, or Japanese, something like that, when he woke up.
Didn't that happen when he got hit by lightning? They got hit by lightning, then they could play the piano.
Yeah,
I heard
stuff
on the
like
news
that.
once where.
But people would just like
Yeah.
learn how to speak languages that they've never even bothered to learn. But in the hospital that the guy was staying, one of the nurses was Japanese or whatever language that he learned, and it's thought that maybe he somehow learned while he was unconscious Japanese through her talking around him. But it's unknown how that happened.
Beth, like jump in front of a car in Korea and see if you learn how to speak it.
I'm sure there are easier ways.
Great plan.
I don't reckon that's pretty fast track to learn Korean, to be fair.
For me, the problem always comes down to is it verifiable? And the thing is, there's these silly documentaries you see where people say, "Oh yeah, my kid ascended to heaven and came back," you know, and now he recognises my granddad when I show him a picture.
Yeah, I know,
And it's just like, where's the evidence of that? For me, it all falls down to most of these stories are based on hypotheticals.
But what about the evidence of language?
Language acquisition.
Or yeah.
That sort of thing. Well, again, there's not really. Again, I struggle with the verifiable evidence of how do we know they didn't know the language. Because for me, there's no evidence to suggest that you can learn an entire vocabulary of language whilst you're unconscious or subconsciously or whatever, or when you die and ascend and come back. Because it's just like
whoa.
Come on, 252.
it's just that was shocking.
French, I know.
Well done.
Je suis lapin.
I've been French for so many years.
Je suis grande œuf. I am big egg.
Nice one.
That's all I know.
Well played. We're all names.
Je m'appelle Bryn.
I was terrible at French. I hit my teacher over the back of the head with a book once.
Did you actually?
What teacher?
Just as a joke, Miss Monroe. Just as a joke. She was like racking off in front of the class, so I just went
Did
like
she
that.
not like actually murder you?
Well, she just told me to leave the class, but then I like talked my way out of it because she kind of liked me. I don't know why, because I was terrible. Why? She was foreign. That's a terrible thing to say.
Yes, that's exactly what I said.
That's what I mean. If there are verifiable cases and there's evidence to support them, then yes, I'd say yeah. But the thing is that usually they're sporadic and then usually put in documentaries
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, my child's been touched by the hand of God.
Like on the Discovery Channel. Yeah.
Or the History Channel, that's even worse.
I like the
How
history
come so
channel.
many people,
Ancient aliens, mate.
Why can so few people
So the
perform
pyramids.
hypnosis?
Because it takes a long time to learn, and you pretty much have to devote your life to studying the human brain.
People can do it.
Yeah, Derren Brown
He loves
devoted
stuff.
his life to studying the human brain.
He's like 30.
Then why can't
I don't know how old he is.
He's quite old, he's like
psychologists do the
50
same
old.
thing?
Really?
He's quite old.
I don't see why can't psychologists, like professors of psychology, why haven't they worked this out yet?
Because they don't learn about the loopholes in the human mind. They don't need to learn about hypnosis. They learn about how the brain works.
But inadvertently, you would find the.
And yeah, they
failures
do
in the
discover. He's 46, by the way. They do discover loopholes in the brain in their research, which then people like Derren Brown take advantage of.
But is there any evidence that these loopholes have these effects?
Definitely, yeah. There's been scientific trials for how people react in certain situations, and you can easily.
So rats like learn the piano and stuff.
I'm not sure on the whole learning thing, but on a very basic level, magicians use it all the time. You know, with misdirection, you're using someone's brain, like the way they process data, to your own advantage by doing something else while doing the secret thing. So it's just things like that you can build on, and I assume this is what Derren Brown does, and he enforces this and keeps going at it until they do what he wants them to do.
But isn't there a difference between the input and the output in the sense that yes, someone can misdirect you, can challenge your brain, can fool it, but nothing's actually going in your brain. Nothing's actually filtered. It's actually going. If you're learning piano, that's an entire complex.
Well, yeah, I'm not
technical
saying
language.
that piano is misdirection. I'm
No,
saying there
but
are
that's the sort
other.
of thing. That's what I'm saying. You can use the brain's loopholes, but you're saying you can also use it in the sense that you gain knowledge. And
I guess I don't know.
Of that.
I don't know. Maybe she doesn't know the piano inside out. He's only like somehow taught her how to play that one song. I don't know how it works. So I'm not qualified to tell you how that works, but I'm saying, especially with his, like for example the Criminal Mind Confession one, that makes a lot of sense because it's been repeated in a scientific environment, and people will do what you want them to do if you're persistent enough.
Well, in fairness, there's a story of a Nazi. He's a Nazi.
Always go back to Nazis.
No, but
and
shut
you
up.
don't.
It's interesting. He was a Nazi.
It's true.
He was a Nazi torturer.
I've heard of this.
And unlike most of the other Nazis, they weren't very good people.
Great.
He didn't. When he captured English prisoners of war, and American prisoners of war, he didn't actually torture them to get information. He just took them on a walk. Literally, he took them on a walk, became their friend. He befriended them, and then they inadvertently told him everything he wanted to know.
Exactly. I watched a TED talk on a guy who. I watched a TED talk on a guy who hosts a magic show online called Scam School, and he basically said that if you're nice to people, you can get around a lot of things just by being nice. So by the way that you appear to them, and even like wearing a suit and being authority. Like there was an experiment where a normal dressed guy basically walks out onto a street and orders people to do stuff, like go stand over there. And I think 20% of people did what he said, and the rest didn't. When he wore a suit or a security guard outfit or something like that, people did it almost 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So the way that you conduct yourself is also influential in terms of what decisions you make.
That's because most people are subordinate to some sort of authority.
Yeah.
So they, for example, if you wore a policeman's outfit, most people in this country are subordinate to the authority of the police. So if they told you to do something else, you would.
Exactly. So people misuse that, and maybe not to the degree of wearing a policeman's outfit, or just by dressing smartly. People will do it.
And that's criminal. You're not allowed to
That's why with the
police officers, etc., and government officials.
if you look at like experiments on like conformity and obedience, like the thing that Milgram did, where he like gets people to electrocute, like he gets people to pretend to be other people at the other side of a wall, and then he says they have to do like questions, and the teacher, the person who's been assigned as a teacher, has to like shock the person who's the other side of the wall, and it goes up incrementally, and they end up screaming at how much it hurts, and then they go silent, and the person usually continues shocking the people when they've gone silent and are presumably dead, even though it's only an actor. I forgot what my point was now. Oh yeah, it's like with that they have a scientist stood there with the person who's doing the shocking, and they're purposely dressed up like with a white coat and everything because they're signs of authority and how they're dressed, and that helped with getting more people to do it. I think they even tested it out with having people not in those uniforms, and there literally was more conformity with the uniform.
Yeah, and they did another experiment where they had a guy in a suit jaywalk in America, and people followed him because he wore a suit. If it was just a normal guy, then they were like, yeah. So if you're in a suit, you can get away with a lot more things. I'm not suggesting you do that. So should we have some more examples of what? Well, some more examples of what Derren Brown has done in the past. He did a thing where basically he got some of his fans and invited them to a seminar that sort of promised to reveal some of his secrets. Unfortunately for them, these students are actually being implanted with the subliminal instructions to willingly carry out an armed robbery on a fake security van at a later date. And they actually did this.
What?
So basically, he invited people who thought that they were going to learn some of his secrets, but he was actually conditioning them to go rob a van.
But that's
Well,
a
like,
bit
was
messed
there
up
own
because they didn't
fruition?
consent to that.
I know, and a lot of his stuff is not consensual. Like,
Was it of their own fruition?
What are these people like afterwards? What do they kind of like interview them afterwards? Do you see what these people think?
I don't know, but you could seriously like mess up someone's mind.
What do you mean?
Surely they
so
could-
They formed a group and then all went as a group. So
They all
robbed the
went
bank, or
individually.
like each person went away and then went and robbed the bank separately.
No, I think there was a group of people, and he trained them all. Like he subliminally messaged them to rob a fake security van, so one that they planted, and they all went and robbed this
I
van.
would never go and do that.
But he subliminally messaged. He caused them to do this.
How?
Surely at least one person
Shop as well.
has turned round and tried to persecute him for this.
I think
Or they probably just get a
maybe
hell
that's
of a
why
lot
he
of
does it,
money.
like, with
It's
fans.
fake.
They probably get a load of money for it after it's been on telly though.
Yeah.
So why
Especially
you wouldn't
since-
sue him? You just be like, oh, thank
If
you.
you're a fan of Derren Brown, you're not going to.
Thanks very much,
like,
mate.
How could you do that to me,
Yeah.
Derren? You'd be like, thank you, Derren. So cool.
In fact, the people must have known. Right, he's not going to show us his secret. Surely there's something like going on here. I've been like changed into a bloody lapdog.
But because they're fans, he's already got that authority over them, and he knows that they're pretty much subservient to
Definitely
them.
weakening
Isn't
bit
it that
about
myth
their fans,
of
though.
it was probably during the Cold War that there were these Russian sleeper agents that they were pumped out by the Soviet regime, and they'd been hypnotised in such a way that they would blend into Western civilization. And they're examples of these people.
Were they real?
And then they'd say a code word. There was a few. This is what I mean. It's not entirely verifiable, but I'm saying this is the myth around it. You would say a code word to them, and then they would act on their command subconsciously. They would have no control over
I
themselves.
still
They'd
don't
be
think that's
hypnotised.
true.
Well, I mean, technically it's the same kind of level of reasoning you have to suspend to believe that some of this stuff is true. Because the Russian government acts as a source of authority. They've been hypnotised, they're consenting, and then they're doing something without realising. I mean, there's an equal level of probability there. So it's not. I think it's quite an established fact that magic, or the perception of magic could have this kind of effect. So
A lot of Derren Brown's stuff isn't magic though. Like the things that we're describing aren't really magic.
But you would perceive them to be magic. Or they'd marry it under the term magic.
What does he kind of like class himself as? What does he say the stuff he does is? A mentalist.
There's a different sub-genre of magic, and they like to completely separate themselves from magic. You got mentalists and magicians who pretend to be mentalists by doing tricks that are just magic and not real mentalism. But in answer to your question earlier about how these people turn out afterwards, he did a trick, a stunt where he basically held a phony PR event with actors and some of Derren's celebrity pals, even offering messages of support via video. This evening was designed to use a social compliance to make Chris push another attendee off the roof of the building, but in an unexpected twist, the visibly upset subject refused and walked away.
That was really cool. That was one that I actually watched. There were like 3 people who did it and actually went to push him off, and then there was one person who was like, "No, I'm not doing it," and it was like, "Oh," because like you watched him the whole way through and his story, and then you felt like proud at the end because he didn't push the guy, and then it went back and was like, "We did it with 3 other people. They all pushed this person off."
So clearly he was very upset.
But
and
why
this
did it fail? Why did it fail?
Because it ignores the fact that not all people are
susceptible
to conformity because of how they grew up or like their environment.
But the thing is that usually these kind of tricks, they exploit gaps in the human brain. Or they
but people are more susceptible. For example, many like hypnosis acts, they will sort of maybe talk to some of the audience and try and get people who are a bit more susceptible and gullible to these things. And they have ways of identifying who is more gullible. And then they can easily do it.
But gullibility isn't a gap in the human brain.
I'm not saying it... I used the wrong word.
Yeah, no,
more susceptible to hypnosis.
Because I think for me...
Whereas this Chris guy, he was susceptible to it. He got to the point where he was going to push someone off a building. But then it suddenly broke in his mind and was like, wait, what am I doing?
Don't they do like tests where... I saw one and it was like they got people in a room where like when a buzzer got off, everybody just stood up, but like they didn't tell the people that. There's like a big like row of people and they're like, okay, go sit down. The person sits down, then a buzzer goes off, and just everyone apart from this person, the real actors, just stands up, and then they do it happen, and then a buzzer goes off and they sit down, it keeps going, and then they see how long it takes for the person to start copying.
Yeah.
And then that's sort of how they tell like how susceptible somebody would be.
Yeah, I think that's what they did for that. Actually, I'm pretty sure if memory serves.
I just don't know. I just don't know. For me, and this is the bit I struggle with. If there's a gap in the human brain, I mean, if you're saying how they're raised, what have you, in this culture, it's fine, whatever, sure.
I'm not saying it's a gap. It's
more
of a.
But there's a fault.
Not necessarily. It's just the way that we are conditioned to act in terms of survival and stuff. Follow the person who seems like the most they know what they're doing. Obviously, they're doing that because they believe. Derren Brown has conditioned them to trust in him and trust everything he says. And like, for example, people who are raised in captivity, if someone keeps someone, oftentimes these people don't run away until they're a lot older. For example, the people in America, because they are sort of conditioned from a very early age to treat their parents like as an authority, and they don't realise it's wrong until there's like a breaking point where they're like, hold on a second, this is wrong. So I think it's probably the same with this Chris guy.
It's wrong, don't they? That's interesting, right? Because they learn it's wrong because usually these people, they're in captivity, but the fault is usually with, for example, when parents assault, and it's horrible, when parents actually assault their children from a young age, their children, and you listen to their accounts, they say, oh, I just thought this is how parents always act, because they know no different. It's when they're exposed to alternate stimuli which indicate something else, then they know. So I think there's the learning. They learn the behaviour. They learn what's normal through schooling, what have you.
So obviously this guy's learned from Derren Brown that this is the norm through like a shortcut way of doing this. But something has triggered him to remember, wait, no, pushing people off buildings isn't right. And that snapped him out of the trance type thing. But yeah.
Yeah, because it was like a whole thing of like they got caught up and there's some guy who supposedly died. And then he had to like cover up the fact that this guy died, and then it was this whole thing where they ended up getting caught up in this story, and they ended up feeling like they were guilty for it, and then to kill this person so they get away with it or something like that.
Oh yeah, there was one where like I think it was a person next to them or something, or like died, or like they pretended that they died, and then they had to like hide
dispose
them
of the
in, like,
body.
boxes and shit.
We've seen them.
I think you can take advantage of basic human impulses.
Mm.
And I mean, pranksters do it, don't they? When they do those silly like clown pranks, what have you. They know people, even fear. They know people are scared. They know they get a reaction. It's just tapping into those basic human problems, really. Well, not problems, emotions, which are issues.
So it's probably not as complicated as people think to do this stuff, but you need to really understand how basic human interactions work for your favour. And it's quite a sinister way of, like, for example, he could do this in real life. He could hypnotise someone to murder someone that he didn't like.
But I think there's no difference from that, for example, when there's some cases where, for example, a young girl or what have you, a young boy will get into a relationship with someone, and something like love will drive them to trust them. They'll see them as a source of authority, and then they can get them to do anything. And it's similar that sort of thing. So
it's also like cults as well, like Scientology and stuff, where they basically get rid of all the connections to their family and just...
We better not show this to Scientology because they genuinely hate when someone...
I know. I'm just saying, Scientology gets rid of all the connections, and then you're pretty much...
Tom Cruise!
Tom Cruise! I was daydreaming. When did we get the Scientology?
Yeah,
we were talking about cults and relationships, so they can convince you to do things.
Tom Cruise
Tom Cruise.
Called like disfellowshipped, and you're not allowed any contact with the
I
disfellowshipped
didn't realise they
person.
didn't celebrate birthdays or Christmases.
Yeah, don't celebrate birthdays, Christmas, anything like that. Yeah, it's like really, you're not allowed to speak at all to a disfellowshipped person. So that's why, like, if just say you had a whole family in the religion and you wanted to leave, if you did, you would never be able to speak to your family again, and they would completely just forget that you existed.
Yeah, but with Scientology, they use that to control you. They mind wash you.
Jehovah's Witnesses do the same. It's just like a lot. It's actually sort of like not a crazy.
It's not
seen
used
as such
for
a crazy
control.
thing.
It's just
Well, it is.
You're
It's
banned.
used to keep people in the religion,
Okay, yeah.
Well,
I
which
guess.
is a form of control.
Yeah.
I know someone whose nan is Jehovah's Witness and she doesn't speak to any of the family because they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. She just literally...
My brother's friend is Jehovah's Witness.
And I had a friend who was Jehovah's Witness, but then she kind of like gave it up when she was in like year 8. She was like fully like her whole life been Jehovah's Witness, never celebrated Christmas or nothing. And then she suddenly was like, oh, and now she doesn't like Christmas because she spent so many other years not celebrating Christmas. It was like crazy that Christmas now exists for her.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because you could technically classify most religions in that kind of cultish status. Even in some countries. I mean, the Americans, when they sing the national anthem, I mean, I've been to America, I've seen that happen, and it is cult-like. When every single morning they're conditioned to sing that, and if they don't, I mean, you got someone. There was a case of a child, and he was told by his parents not to sing the national anthem. I think they were protesting, what have you, and he was sitting there visibly shaking because his entire body was telling him to stand up. He knew no different, and it's an interesting thing where your mind has been conditioned, controlled by a source of authority to respond in that way.
There's actually a lot of countries recently that are starting to look into potentially classifying Jehovah's Witnesses as a cult. Because there's a lot of
Jehovah's Witnesses.
yeah, they're like
really?
considering because there's a lot of stuff that's come out from within it. I mean, like especially like sexual assault and stuff like that is like, or like abusive marriages. It's like insane how they like force people in there.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, Islam before
You're a bit
I
late.
suppose, in some ways.
You guys know?
Pretty much now.
Yeah, it's
One.
1 o'clock.
We got slightly off topic with magic.
It's a bit late, isn't it?
Yeah, but I've got 15 minutes.
We should
Should we
just
close it out?
quickly give Kyle's view. No, I don't know on what though.
Well,
Well,
no.
Do you think people like Derren Brown should be able to control people's minds using loopholes in order to get what he wants for entertainment?
Like hypnosis and stuff.
For example,
Darren
pushing
Brown is
someone
an
to
entertainer, right?
Magician.
Obviously, people go to see him in order to actually, like,
No shit, really.
for him to do that. Like, people find satisfaction in entertainment. So what I'm trying to say is, it depends on what he's doing. Like,
What
if it's purely for entertainment, then I don't see any problem with that.
But what in one of these examples, he basically gets a group of unsuspecting fans and invites them to a seminar where he says, "Oh, I'm going to reveal some of my secrets." Instead, he conditions them to rob a security van.
Okay.
It's a good episode.
Is that ethical? If they didn't know that they were going to do that.
But he has. So what you're saying, you're uncomfortable with how he actually has the power to
I'm
do
not
that.
personally uncomfortable. I'm just saying, how is this ethical to do this sort of stuff? to exploit people's
They're consenting,
brains.
so why not? They are consenting.
Yeah, if they consent and it's for their
But they're not
entertainment, I don't see
consenting.
any
Not
They're
problem.
not
in that act.
consenting.
That's my opinion.
No, because they don't know what's going to happen.
They're
They
consenting
They
in the
just
fact
rock
that
up.
they-
Do they consent to the fact
Oh, hi,
they know
Kyle.
what's not gonna happen?
to
They don't know what's
the
gonna
seminar. Not
Because you could consent to not knowing what's going to happen. You
I
could
was
say,
planning on
I
doing
know,
that.
I know that I'm probably going to be manipulated, but I'm going here anyway.
don't know that they're going to be manipulated.
But that's still
They've been
not
told that
really
they're going to be
consenting.
You're going
Also,
to
the
someone
last
who's
one, he
going-
goes-
who's
he-
manipulative and
No.
in the last one, they go
Well,
to a
I'm
PR.
pushing it, yeah.
They go to a PR event, which is nothing to do with Derren Brown, and he causes someone to push someone off a building.
And even
I
if
thought
they're
you said
going
that
there,
he was going to
but,
yeah,
and there's a chance
No,
that
that's
they're
different.
that's still not consenting.
Well, yeah,
They're
but
still not saying I'm okay.
what
with
if they
that.
sign a waiver that says...
If they sign a waiver saying I'm okay with like whatever if he wants to do some sort of a trick or whatever, I'm okay with that. Then that's fine. They did consent to like, even though it's being like a mystery what's going to happen, they still consented. But if they're just like, we're going here for this seminar, but it's him, so who really knows what he's going to do? Like that's not
Yeah, no,
okay.
I agree with that. And that's why I think that would be immoral.
I think that on the basis that it is entertainment, even if it's, I don't know, I don't really agree with the non-consenting, but if it is consensual and is not used in public to get actually what he wants, not just for entertainment, then I think that it is probably quite moral.
It's really interesting as well from a scientific
Yeah.
perspective. Of, like,
Yeah.
learning about
Did you really have to
human
do
mind.
it?
But yeah, shall we wrap it up? This has been episode 14 of the Philosopod. Email us any topic ideas
Can't
at
do that.
thephilosophod@gmail.com. Not that any of you have. Just kidding.
I was not.
No. Also, like stuff on YouTube.
Sorry, I'm so Ryan's been a bit
And
whack.
subscribe
Bye.
to the channel.